Hello, so I'm going to be talking about Lab 5 here, and basically the goal of this lab was to show the areas of the Metro Milwaukee area that are located within a specific distance in meters of parks, and basically we're going to interpret that result from there. So to actually get to that final result, we need these algorithms within a model here, and basically they just allow us to specify what we want to accomplish. So the first algorithm is the reproject layer here, and basically the point of this is just to change the map projection, and a map projection is simply a way in which the Earth's surface is kind of transferred onto another surface or a map, and they all are kind of associated with a specific unit of distance or measurement. So the current map projection that we are on is in decimal degrees, and because we're going to be analyzing distance in meters, we want to have a projection that also uses meters as its units. So that's basically the purpose of this particular layer. And then the next thing we added was the buffer layer here, and this is the first of two that we're using. And the first one is simply just used to fix any inaccuracies in our data that we have. So we are getting our specific locations and the features of parks from OpenStreetMap data, and anyone can go onto OpenStreetMap and digitize these different features, so anyone can go on and map out where these parks are. So it's important that in the process we make sure that there's no small inaccuracies that happened when somebody was mapping something, so that just fixes this issue. And then the next thing we do is the extract by attribute layer, and this is simply just filtering down our data that we have. So since we are only interested in the parks, what we can do is we add the selection attribute here and we choose leisure. And by choosing leisure, we include parks in that process because parks are categorized as leisure activities in this particular set of data. And so this basically just allows us to start that first step of further specifying what we want to look at. And then the next thing we added was the buffer, the second buffer, and this one is used to actually create a space, and so it'll show us the actual areas that visually show us the actual areas that are located within a specific distance of parks. And later on, by having this buffer later on when we actually run the model, we can specify the distance that we want. And then the final thing is the clip layer here, and this is clipping the model to a specific boundary. So since we only are interested in the Milwaukee metro area, by adding this clip layer, it'll make sure that only the map is showing the features of parks in the metro area, and anything else outside of this boundary doesn't matter. So later on when we actually run the model, we can specify the metro area. So looking at here, before we run the model, you can specify the buffer size here. So I chose 1200 meters. And then this is the clip layer, so I can specify the boundary that I want, and then I can select the feature that I want from the leisure category, which is, we're going to be choosing parks. So now I will be able to see areas of Milwaukee that are located within 1200 meters of a park. So that'll ultimately show this as a result. So these are all the buffer areas here, and so anything within these areas is going to be, you can pick a point and you will be within 3/4 of a mile of a park in Milwaukee. So looking at this result, I think that it would be important to add a park in this area here because it's fairly close to Milwaukee, and based on certain trends and how urbanization is increasing in the country, I think that maybe it would be useful to add a park here because we might see some more urban development in this area and kind of around the city center. So eventually, if the development continues, it might be useful to have a park there. And that is all I have.